All right, so next we're going to tackle the muscles in the abdominal region. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to the lower or the inner muscles. We're going to deal with a couple of inner muscles here that is not too important to know, but it is sort of important. So it helps understand kind of how the external body looks when you're dealing with what's called the love handles or the obliques. So the first thing that the first muscle we're going to do is this most inner muscle that holds the organs in. It's going to connect itself along this coastal margin of the bottom coastal margin of the rib cage, and it's going to wrap itself around and around this bottom rib onto the back area, about this far into the back. So it'll go back here like this. It's also going to run along the iliac crest of the hip bone, come around, and it's going to stop, and it's going to connect itself down here like that. So it's going to have open space between here and here. All right, so this muscle is called the transversus abdominis. It's the innermost muscle of the innermost layer of the abdominal muscles, and its main purpose is to contract your organs and keep your organs in. Right, so let's go ahead and with the red, we will begin to draw where this muscle resides. Right, so to know about where it begins, you have these ribs here, and just to make sure you can see this really quick, this one here, just count down from like 1, and then 2, and then 3, and this is where you know it's going to begin, right in this area. Make sure I'm using the right brush here. All right, it's going to wrap itself, down. It's going to come around away from our view. It has a slight, it's not very thick, and it has a slight shape like this to it, and it comes in. Remember, this is the whole body. Actually, it's going to come in even more. Remember, the whole body is going to be thicker than this once all the muscles are on, and the skin and fat and everything. Attached like this, it comes all the way down and attaches here. So it kind of runs across like that. So it's not attaching anywhere between here and here. It's just attaching to the iliac crest here, and attaching this little muscle here. Right, then it's going to come up and it's going to have a shape. It's going to kind of just come almost like a straight curved line like this. Right, that's the general shape of the muscle. Going to fill this in with the color. Okay. If you're using pencil, you might want to just, put a light flat shade across the muscle at first before you add all the other details. Now, the muscle lines, well, I guess first let's draw the kind of like the connective tissues. So over here, it kind of connects to another kind of fascia material of the abdominal muscle. So, but just because it does attach over here to something similar to a tendon, we're going to go ahead. Oops, that's right. We're using this kind of blue color now, aren't we? We're just going to kind of put that color along here like this. We also know it's attaching along here, so we'll put that color there. It attaches to other material here, other fascia material. So, right. Now it wraps around the body, so we're going to see the wrapping. Now here's what happens with the lines. The lines of this muscle kind of go in this direction. And really the only reason why it's important to really learn this muscle is because its basic shape helps you understand what pushes underneath when you build up and what you can kind of see the love handle. The external oblique is a lot harder to see the love handle, but this muscle makes it easier to see where you have your love handle, which comes in this area like this, comes down, right, on a man, and we'll go over the female too. We'll have to deal with the torso and chest muscles for the female separately, just because this area of muscles differs a little bit on the female because of the skeletal structure differing as well. So the love handles kind of go like that. So you just remember that love handles, they attach. If you're going to draw a love handle, they kind of come in and down like that. So they kind of attach to the iliac crest, and you can almost think of them as almost going all the way up to the rib cage. Your belly button is right here, between these last two vertebrae right there, and it's almost exactly as high as the highest part of the hips. And if you look at a female, the hips, come down and come wider, not like this a little bit more, and so it actually is level at the highest part of the hips. And so that you can look at a male or female, and you'll notice that the top part of a female too is like that, so it's higher than the belly button. Same with the man, the love handles start a little bit higher than the belly button. Then you'll have your last bottom abdominal muscle in here, which is a long one. Then you'll have your other abdominal muscles in here. Right, okay, so just wanted to show that. So you can kind of see where we're heading and how it's going to give shape to the human body. And when we start to add the skin onto the body, or um, you know what, to hell with it. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that medical word. So I'll just refer to it as the skin. All right, I know you probably want to hear me try to pronounce it just so you can know what it is I'm talking about. It's the integumentary system, and I don't know if that's how it's said or not, but it's how it looks like it should be said. Forget all those stupid foreign words. They're annoying. Anyway, it's the skin, damn it. It's what it is. Right? So there's really no reason to labor this particular muscle, but nonetheless, because you want to get used to this shape here, you're going to want to go ahead and draw it from both angles. So let's go ahead now. So do the exercises, draw this a few times from reference, then draw it from memory. You should get the hang of it pretty fast. It's not too difficult of a muscle. Come in, come out, wrap it around where it connects, and come down here. And remember, see, this is why you want to draw it from because this angle here, you don't want to have to think about, okay, I need to reverse that angle. You want to be able to just go, okay, this is the angle it has. So you want to learn the angle from this side as well. What that'll do is it'll just help you draw from both sides equally well. Try to make my line good enough so I can use this little trick here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause it while I fill in this with the color. All right, so go ahead and draw this shape here a few times from this side without looking at this side at all. So cover it up, whatever you're using, just cover it up. Another little trick you can use to cover it up if you're in like a program, like a Photoshop program or some other program, make a new layer, and then just fill it in with the color, and bam, you can't see nothing. So that's another way to do it. Cover up with a piece of paper if you're working with paper. Right. So since this muscle is not terribly important, we should at least cover the back view and side view. Right, so zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so it's going to come to about right where this little part here ends. That's about where it's going to stop. And it's going to kind of come up like this. There's other, muscles that wrap around a little bit further, and that's what gives you more of your love handle. So we'll go ahead and pull this muscle around. It comes in quite flat. Okay, for some reason my thing's being stupid. That's another problem that happens with I don't know if anyone else has had this problem, but as I'm drawing sometimes, next thing I know, my pen seems like it's not working, and like it'll just like draw straight lines as if I'm holding down select or something, and I have to go like kind of tap hard and do a single dot or click with my mouse to get rid of it, and I'm not sure really what causes that to happen. And again, I haven't looked it up or nothing. It doesn't happen all that often, so I'm not too worried about it. The main thing I don't like is when my pressure sensitivity just turns off for no reason during a stroke, and I'm like, why did that just happen? And I'm pretty sure it's a driver issue, just can't find the right driver for it yet. You can see some of where it connects back here now, where it connects all along here, and down there. There'll be no reason to draw this again from the other side, but if you want to, well, I guess there could be a reason, but I'm going to leave it optional to you whether or not you want to draw this from the other side view where the person's facing left instead of right. But don't worry, when we get to the external oblique, which really makes up the left handle anyway, you're going to see, you'll be able to see more how that works. So that one will draw from all the different angles, but this muscle is not as important, and so I don't see there's any reason to draw from all the angles. In fact, I think only those two angles are really all that's important, just to know the muscle is there. There's another muscle that goes over this one too, and in fact, we're just going to be drawing right over it for the most part. I'm not even going to have it under a separate layer. Right, so the next one that we want to draw is the internal oblique, and this muscle almost looks like exactly the same shape as this muscle and actually overlaps this muscle almost identically, except when we get to the side and back view, it goes back a little bit farther. So note all it does is it makes this muscle a little bit thicker, and it just lies over it. And in fact, I think we can even use this muscle that we already have there, and we'll just kind of use that as the internal oblique since it has the same shape, but we're going to extend its shape as it continues further around the back. Right, so from the side view, we're going to see that this muscle then, it continues like this, but then it comes down and it comes down like this here, oops, to the back over here. And we're going to see how this changes the shape of the muscle a little bit. So this is all we're going to do is simply show the internal oblique now. And the internal oblique is sort of important because of how it shows the back. And it helps form the love handle because the external oblique actually doesn't form the love handle in the back area. It's this muscle that does, the internal oblique. Right, so from the back view then, it has this kind of shape where it attaches up here, kind of comes down here. So just like the other muscles, it's really no different. But here's where it differs. It comes back a lot further around on the iliac crest. And then it comes up here. Actually, it doesn't come that far down the iliac crest. To see how far down the iliac crest it comes, it's easier to imagine a line coming straight across this way, and then just coming down a little bit, and almost to the edge of the spine, and then it kind of has an angle like this. And it connects along here, along that top part of the crest. And then it comes along here, like this. This is the basic shape of the muscle. Right, so the fibers of this muscle actually work a little differently than the previous muscle. So these ones kind of more run this way. Because the way, I'll show from the side view, the way it's attaching to the ribs is a little different. Attached to the lower four ribs. Right, so I just want to show. And you can't, from the side view, and I forgot to change this because I was too busy thinking about other stuff. Let's go ahead and change this really quick. So the lines, because the way this muscle connects is a little different than the previous muscle, and so the lines are going to look a little different. What happens here is we actually get like pieces of this muscle that kind of come up and attach to ribs, and this is what gives you the, and then it attaches to the next rib like this, and then attaches, I think it attaches up here even a little bit. So it kind of has, that's what makes the muscle run along this way. But exactly how it attaches isn't all that important, but the shape of it is important, so you know how to do your love handles properly. All right, so I wanted to show a more accurate version of the side view. So we want to come up to this part here, connects to the most bottom rib, the 12th rib, and then 11th rib, and 10th rib. And then this whole part kind of has a more of a gradual line like this. The lines kind of change directions a little bit like this. All right, so that's kind of how the fibers work. All right, so let's go back to the front view now. And I went ahead and erased the lines from the front view so we can redirect them, because now remember, now we know they're kind of coming down like this, right? They're all kind of running this way. Actually, I would even hold on, let's go ahead and go back a few lines here. Let's start pushing them all like this. This is where they kind of start going like this. Right, there we go. Just want to add a few more lines here. Add a few highlight lines. Let's do the same thing for the other side. So at first they're coming like this, and they're coming around to that side view that we just had. And then they just kind of start coming more like this. Almost sideways. Add a few highlight lines here. All right, so now for the exercise, what I want you to do is draw this one more time and this one more time, both sides, from reference to the memory, just to realign yourself with these lines, the direction of the flow lines now, or the fibers. And then go ahead and redraw this here. So draw it connecting to this rib, and then this rib, and then this rib, and then kind of just up to the coastal margin, and everything else pretty much stays the same. And as your next exercise, go ahead and draw this shape here a few times. This, you want to get comfortable with this shape, because this makes up the back of your love handle shape. Draw it a few times and then draw it from memory, and then we're going to draw on this side over here. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little trick that I was talking about earlier. We're going to fill this in with the color so we can't see it, and then go back to here, and we're going to draw this muscle again. So remember, it comes to about the top of the hip, this point right here, or right about the bottom of this vertebrae, the bottom of the third vertebrae, from the bottom up, if we're counting it that way. And it kind of comes up like this, attaches up here, comes across to the front, comes down like this angle here, then it wraps around this region of the like that. So that's the shape you want to memorize. So go ahead and draw that shape a few times, and then draw it from memory, draw it from reference, back and forth till you feel comfortable with the shape. Remember, the lines for this run at this angle here, so they kind of come down because they're coming up and they're attaching, to each of those ribs. So you want to kind of draw them like that. As they're coming down, like so. If you want to get more detail with this, you can actually show just a little bit of part where the fibers are connecting here, and some highlights like so. Right, so there we go. Now we have the internal obliques covered. We should also cover the internal obliques from the 3/4 back view because it's going to help us see like how much of the oblique or love handle you can see, from a quarter view like this, how much of it's foreshortened and cut off and how much of it you can actually see. There's not a whole lot of it you can actually see. So first we'll draw this side, because this side we already have a good idea about. We know that, it connects over here. We know it comes back to this area or so. We know it comes down to about even with the point. It doesn't want to go too far out. Remember the center line. So kind of imagine that center line. It doesn't want to come out to the center line. And actually, it's easier if you just kind of put a target right here. I find it's easier to draw with targets like that. Just go and wrap this muscle all around like this. And remember, it has this kind of shape like this. Right, so that's that shape. Go ahead and draw it a few times for reference, then draw it from memory. Then we'll draw the shape over here. And so what we're only going to see a part of it as it comes down, like so. Right, you're going to see just like this. You're only going to see this tiny little part as it comes in here a little bit. And it can come up and see that kind of that point there. And it's going to come like that. So that's all you're going to see of the shape from this angle. Just remember where the connection points are, and you can kind of figure it out what you'd be able to see. But sometimes the 3/4 view can be confusing, so that's why I want to cover it. I'll take a dark color here. Remember the lines kind of come up like this remember they're connecting to each rib, and I probably should go ahead and, it's really not that important to know, but I should probably go ahead and connect it up each rib, and then finally more toward the front like that, because it does come up a little bit higher actually. But it kind of has like that look. But this is the part that's important, which is why I've been stressing that. It's that curve is the important part of it. And the way that curve works. And then remember, it's going to start kind of running diagonal like this, and then run down like that. So the fibers kind of change direction a little bit. Let's add a few connective tissue fibers here. And then coming up. And finally we'll add a couple highlight. From this back, we're pretty much only going to see a couple of those fibers like that. Right, there we go. So go ahead and draw this a few times from memory. You already got the shape down, but maybe you want to make sure you have the fibers down too. And then also from reference and from memory, reference and memory. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and we might as well cover it from the 3/4 view as well. And remember, it's just so much better to learn it the other way, but just keep in mind that the main shape here is still the same as before. That's still the main shape you want to memorize, but we'll go ahead and draw a little bit, a more complicated way. Comes down here, connects here. So there's going to be that gap in there between the muscle where the muscle's not hitting. Kind of come and we'll draw this muscle coming in like this. We'll have the fibers coming like that, and then finally kind of at an angle there. That's that shape. The other shape, now this is where, remember, it has to connect here. We know it has to come up here to the coastal margin of the rib, right, which you can see in yellow. So it's connecting up there somewhere. It's coming down like this. So we can kind of figure out how it's going to look. And we know it's wrapping around, and so we'll be able to actually see the inside muscle if the person will see through. But we're just going to see a little bit of muscle here. We know it connects to the iliac crest. comes down and shoots that same area. So that's the basic shape you're going to see from that 3/4 view. So if you know the connection points of muscles, you can kind of figure out how much of that thing you might be able to see. In this case, it's not very much of it. So to keep the recording time down, I'm going to be pausing on redundant stuff like how I just filled in all that with color. It's not necessary to, see all that. So we know that at first these lines back here go in this way like this. Let's go and draw a few of those. Then they kind of start coming at an angle here. And then finally they kind of start coming like this, to where they almost come vertical like the muscle underneath it. And so the lines here, muscle lines will kind of come like this. We know these ones are going to kind of come at an angle. Sorry, like that more. I'll add the highlights in there to kind of show that. There we go. Right, so now we got that internal oblique covered from all these different angles, and you should have a good understanding of it. Go ahead and draw this a few times from reference and a few times from memory until you have this you figure this out down. You figure that out. That sounded funny. And this one too, because this is important to know when it turns how much if it's foreshortened and why you only see a part of it. So again, why you only see a part of it, we know that this is continuing to wrap around. We can't see that because it's being cut off, right? We can't see through the person. But we know that's what happens. It continues around there and it wraps around here. So if you know the insertion points up here, and it stops, then you can kind of figure out the overall shape. You go, okay, insertion point here, insertion point here. It inserts along here, but I can't see as it goes around anymore, and so I have to just connect the dots and fill in the shape. The same thing goes for this here. The insertion point's here. It stops right about here because it has some fibers it attaches to. Comes down here, and when you know the points you can see, the insertion points you can see, you just kind of fill in the dots, and then boom, you have your shape. And you can do that for any muscle from any angle. Right, so there you have it. We're moving along here. And next we're going to cover the external oblique, and that's where we're going to turn this layer down a little bit, like so. Maybe not that much. And lock it, and we'll go to this layer here, unlock it. Right, so now we're going to cover the external oblique. Now the external oblique is a really important muscle to learn how to attach to the ribs, because it's going to teach us, remember that thing I showed you earlier where it went like this? And like, you don't want to just memorize that, you want to learn why that is. This is part of why that is. This is going to help us understand that. Right, so the next area we're going to cover is more the midsection, and we're going to do the muscle called the obliquus externus abdominis muscle, but for short we'll just call them the obliques, or we'll call it the obliques. Now the obliques have a couple different purposes. One is it helps turning the torso, or even twisting the torso. It helps also in breathing out. Its connection points are the bottom parts of the lower 8 ribs, so not the first 4 ribs, but the bottom parts of the 8 ribs. And then also it connects to a fascia material, which is kind of like a tenon material, that extends this whole region of the chest here. And this is also where the abdominum muscles fit in, or abs fit in. So I have also created a layer here called mid muscles, and I'm going to be drawing this on the mid muscles because they're going to go underneath the pecs but above these lower muscles here. Make sure I have my red color chosen again. Right, actually first I'm going to use this kind of bluish gray color. Or is it that color, or is that color? It's just indents. I can't remember. Let me see. I think it was that. Yeah, okay, it's that one. Right, so we'll go to this midsection here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw. So we know it's going to come all the way up to this, again, the 1, 2, 3, 4. So this 5th rib here. Right, so we're going to draw this fascia material coming down to that rib. So right here, we're going to draw it coming like so. And actually, I don't know if I want it curving up like that. So let's go ahead and just kind of draw it like this. We'll have part of the muscle wrap around, or part of this fascia material wrapping around the sternum like this. And you'll see why when we get to the abdominal muscles. Right, this shape is going to come down like so, and connect to this frontal area here. And actually, it's going to have more of a shape like this because then it's going to connect over here like that. The reason why it's shaped like this is that's the whole fascia area, or the tin area. The muscles we're about to draw is more of a muscle that's on the side of the body. Here's one way you can color in fast. You can just make a really big brush, color in the mass of it, and then turn the size down a little bit. You can hit this area too. That's another way to do it if you don't like the other method I showed how to do. Right. So get a shape, something like that. This shape is not super important to memorize, so don't worry about that. I'm just showing you. It's important to know how the muscles connect. That way when you draw the abs above this, it'll help you put it all together. So when you look at the obliques from the side like this, they connect again to this under part of this fifth rib, and they go around, and it's to the side that you're going to see how they connect differently. For now, we're just going to draw it going like this, and it's going to have a thicker, more of a thickness, and this is going to create more also of the oblique here. And we'll come down and connect here to this fascia material. And for now, I'm going to just kind of draw this shape like so. We'll draw how the muscles divide from the side view, and then we'll return back to the front view so you can see why we're drawing what we're drawing. But for now, this general shape from the front view is definitely worth memorizing. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and pause the video and do your exercises. You should know by now how to do the exercises. It's simply to, first you're drawing along with me, and then I want you to go ahead and draw from reference a few times this general shape here, and then draw again from memory, and from reference from memory until you get it down. Right, now let's go and look at the side view, because the side view is what's really going to reveal how this muscle looks. Then we'll go back to the front view to add in the muscle, I guess, fibers, the direction the muscle is kind of going. So the first thing we're going to do from the side view is draw that same material. So we know it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, connects to this fifth rib, kind of comes around, comes like this, then comes down like so. Right, so once you know that's the general shape, and you can connect it in here like so. I'm going to use my other trick now. Okay, let's fill it in. Now let's take this red color. Now here's where things get a little different from the side view. So from the side view, you actually can see where this muscle begins to attach, where it connects here to this rib here. And you can see it kind of comes down and it kind of comes over the rib. So sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. Let's do it again. Angle's a little different than that. The angle comes down a little bit further, so it kind of comes like this, comes over that rib, almost like it's going to connect to that other rib down there. And actually it looks more like this. You'll see why it's important that it goes over those ribs. But this part doesn't connect all the way over there. So from the front view, we should see that same thing happening, like so. Let's make this maybe a little bit thinner. Right, and then the next one, each one comes down a rib length, connecting to the next rib, and it wraps itself around to the back. And actually, this isn't the complete side view, so what we should actually be working right now is with a complete side view. Let's do that first. We'll come back to that, but we're starting to get a feel for how this muscle looks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So remember this part. Remember that it kind of goes around the sternum, connects to this part, to the coastal cartilage. Comes down, kind of connects to the side a little bit. It comes out right here. That's where the abdominal muscles are going to lie in on top of. They're going to lie on top of that fascia material. like so. All right, so we know this first rib, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to be connected to the bottom part. This first rib is actually more back here, like so. Connects to the bottom part of the rib right there. And it comes down like this, and it kind of comes over that rib. It might even come at more of an angle. It kind of comes around the rib like that. So it's shaped something like this. So you can kind of see how it kind of matches up there. Each one again connects lower on the next rib. Okay, so each one connects lower on the next rib, and it starts working its way toward the back. Each one has that kind of same flow here, where they roll over the rib cage. Comes all the way out here, and it connects to the fascia material. Connects way out here like this, until finally you just start to see, and actually this might come out a little bit more like so. So and you start to see where it kind of goes toward the back now, and this is where you're not really going to see it connecting anymore. From here you kind of see it, so the connections will be right about here as it goes to the back muscles over there, to the other back around it where it connects to the ribs, continues to connect to the ribs like that in the back, which we'll see when we do the back view. That's how this muscle looks. And so this starts to give you that kind of shape of your love handles. All right, so now let's go ahead and separate these muscles so we can see what they look like. And what, if you ever wondered from if you look at someone from the side view and their arms up, you'll kind of see, you'll see like the abs, and then next to the abs, you'll kind of see these bumps here sometimes. And what that's caused from is here where this comes and let's go back here. Where this comes down and it rolls over that rib, comes down again like this, right? So the way it's shadowed when light hits it, it can actually cause, some people you can just see this whole muscle here, and some you might even think it's ribs you're seeing on the side there, but you're actually seeing that muscle. Other people you kind of see this more of a distinctive, because there's a dip in here, and you get something more like this, a distinctive kind of almost like a ball. Then the abs next, is here, right? So it's right next to the ab. So if you were to see it from like a 3/4 view, you might like see an ab here, another ab here, right? And then you'll see this shape like this, and then sometimes up here you'll see this shape here where it kind of comes across, comes in, and that is where you have the serratus muscle, which we'll get into after this, and how it overlaps this muscle here. So it comes to the side, and it comes in and overlaps these muscles. Right, anyway, so the serratus muscle will cover some of this muscle here, the obliques. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and actually extend out these muscles a little bit more. Because it isn't really until these muscles get out here that they start to connect like this. Like so. So from this angle here then, I'm going to make sure it's like on the side of the body. That's when this muscle actually starts connecting. Kind of wraps over like this. So it's not until it gets out there more that starts connecting to the rib. And again. Each one connecting to the rib underneath it. Until finally it's going to, muscles are going to run away on the other side over there. And we're just going to see. Like this. Right, so from the front view, you can't see anywhere where the connecting points are. From the side view, you can see where the connecting points are on the ribs. And then so from the 3/4 view, you can just see a little bit more like a slight side view, so you can start to see where these muscles are connecting. Right, and then the serratus connect up here, it's going to connect down, 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 and it's actually going to come over some of these muscles. And as it goes over those muscles, that's where you get this famous look right here. Because they come over these muscles, where they come up, they come over like this. And that's going to give you that cut. Ah, dang it. Right, and then from the 3/4 back view, make sure I have red, you can begin to see, I want to cover those muscles, so I'm going to kind of go like this. Right, so you can begin to see where these muscles attach to each rib. So first you have this one here, that's attaching like this. Have that shape going on like that. And you have the second one from the bottom up, counting now, like this. And it comes up to the third and the fourth. This is counting from the bottom up. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, like that, to where you can't really see behind that, but try not to cover that muscle there, the cora brachialis. All right, so that's what we have it from that view. Let's go ahead and draw in the fibers of this muscle so we can start to get a visualization of what it looks like. So they kind of start to come out like this, and then they kind of start to curve down like this. This is where you can really try to memorize this shape that you have here, and this is for the love handle. And actually, you know what? I'm going to draw this coming just a little bit further into this here. Oh, like here. Make sure I get this accurate as possible. This muscle might give you a little bit of trouble at first. Just remember the kind of angle of this line here where the connecting points happen. That same angle line there. And then you can see some of it toward the back. If you can remember that the angle of the line, it'll help you draw this muscle better. Notice it's been a while since I drew this muscle from this view like this, so even I had a little bit of trouble there for a second as I was reacquainting myself with it. One of these ones you just kind of draw like this. So you have that love handle line. That's the line I'm going to draw in black, so you can really remember this line. This is a really important line you want to memorize. That line right there, because that line is going to help you situate the love handle. So keep in mind, when drawing a human being, if you have the skeletal down and memorized, and doing some simplified version where you're like, okay, this represents the hip crest, right? These are the hip crests right here, the top parts. And you know that somewhere down here you have some stick figure representing the legs, right? That's the how the legs come out and down. Then your leg muscles, they come from the pelvis point, they kind of come in like this, and they start from way up here. So this is where you have your legs. They connect to this bottom half of this little simplified version of the crest. And then your love handle connects to the top half of this, like so, right? So you have love handle and leg, and that's on the top and bottom of that crest. Just that little bit of information right there should help you tremendously when you're drawing your figures, as long as you have at least the basic stick skeleton memorized and you're able to draw that from memory. All right, so let's go ahead and see again how these muscles are coming down like this. When they come down and they start coming like this, this is when they start kind of working their way down a little bit because they're about to lend themselves over to this love handle shape here. In fact, I'm going to darken all this in just so we can kind of get, because it's a good thing to memorize anyway. Might as well memorize it now, that shape for the love handle. So I just want a little bit of separation between my muscles here. Then I might just draw a few dark fibers from here, and maybe a few light fibers. When I'm drawing the light fibers, I have a really light hand. I just barely even touch it, like so. Maybe I'll use a really darker color, just kind of separate some of these muscles here on the side. Separate the love handle. Go ahead and draw where the fascia comes in, and it kind of connects here to this fibrous. It's like again, it's acting like a tendon. I'm gonna push pause. So I'm trying to pause the stuff that's just not important. Again, I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna do some dark lines. I'll do one of these strands just to show you. I'll do a couple light lines in between with the light hand, and then that's it. And I might, separate it a little bit further with dark. I'm gonna pause and do the rest. And the reason why I'm going to try to pause in parts like that where I'm coloring, it doesn't add any benefit for you to watch me, is because I know this course is going to be a long one. We're going to be covering all kinds of stuff like animated muscles and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it's important that I pause out the parts that aren't necessary to do. What is necessary is for me to do the basic shapes here of the muscles. That way you can see that the major line shapes of the muscles here. Again, I want to show this shape here, this love handle shape. Important shape to memorize. The rest, again, I'm just going to separate these muscles by adding a few fiber layers like that. I'm going to use the white or a lighter color, it's not quite white. And that's all I'm doing. So for the exercises for right now, what you should do is you should go ahead and everything we've drawn so far, you obviously drawn along with me. And then I want you to go ahead and draw from reference a few times. So draw this a few times from reference so you kind of get the hang of where it is they're connecting. Notice that they're coming all the way back here on the side. So they're connecting right here with the arm. Now, right here it looks like it might be connecting with the same place as the arm. Like it should be connecting all right here, but that's not really how it is. Kind of like an illusion. So if you just memorize this, you'll get a good feel three-dimensionally of where these muscles are connecting. Now, where these muscles are connecting aren't like super important to memorize. The only part, the reason why when you're drawing figures it's going to be really important is when you have the serratus muscle overlapping some of these muscles here. Like you'll have it coming down here and overlapping here, overlapping here. And from the side view, it's going to cause this kind of look. It's going to cause it kind of look like this, where you're going to have these lines coming down like this, and then you have serratus muscles connecting over them like that. And that shape right there is important to memorize, and that's why you're learning these two muscle groups. So just keep in mind that the whole purpose of learning these muscle groups is to learn that shape structure right there and how and why that shape structure is created. Then when you're drawing your figures, you'll know exactly where to put those in and not mess up. So understanding the underlying structure of how to do that is very important. Right, so then again, just in case you're not clear for your exercises, I want you to draw the side view, 3/4 view, the front view, make sure you draw the fiber areas, the connection points of these muscles. Then also do this back version here. Well, actually first do that. So first do these 3 views. Get acquainted with this muscle from those views really well. And then draw it from memory, draw it from reference a few times until you have a good feeling of how this muscle kind of fits in. The basic diagram shape, is like that. So that's like the kind of shape you're memorizing, it fits into that shape. And then also you want to memorize it from the front view. We're going to pause and fill out the rest of the lines. Right, so when you can draw these 3 fairly confidently, and you have the general idea of how these muscles look, then we'll go and move up. Remember that legs connect way up here, right? You have a good idea of how actually more like here. You have a good idea how the figure looks with these muscles. Then come here and redo this muscle again with me, drawing in the fibers. So I'm not going to bother moving this arm out of the way. I'm just going to draw behind it. Remember the muscle fibers kind of come like that to wrap around going toward the front view. And then here, this is when you start to get that love handle right in here. And I'm purposely doing it like this so you can learn this love handle shape. It's an important shape to memorize on the human figure. It really makes your figures look nice when you have a good grip on that muscle. So I don't spend much time, as you can see, doing the fibers because too many fibers doesn't look right. So it's a few fibers, a few light ones in there to break up the shapes a little bit. And I think that adds nice quality. And there you go. Then I like to use the black to kind of break up some of the major muscle groups. All right, so there you have it. All right, so go ahead and draw that a few times from the back view. Get a handle of it. Draw a few times for reference, a few times for memory, and then we'll do that's like a 3/4 back view, and then we'll do a complete back view. Actually, let's go ahead and do the fibers on this side here. You already drawn the basic shape on that side. Hopefully you have that memorized. And then it's just a matter of coming down with the fibers, knowing that they're wrapping around the other side over there. And again, you have the love handle. And again, it's pretty important that you memorize how this works as far as, from each side here in the front view. If you want to take the extra time, and it's probably going to be very beneficial, is do a flip, draw it also on the flip version here of the skeleton. That is, draw these same muscles on the flip side. And actually try that right now as an exercise. Draw this right here. You already know how to draw it from this side view, right? Try drawing it from that side view, and look how much more difficult it might be. It's weird when you have to flip it around your mind. So if you draw that a few times from reference and from memory, it'll snap into both sides in your mind. You'll be able to draw both sides equally well. You won't have to go, okay, how does it look again from that side? You want to slow yourself down so much. We have enough information to figure it out. It connects to the bottom parts, or basically connects to the ribs. The 8 lower ribs, and it starts from this fascia material. The basic shape that you learned. And if it connects here and runs on the coastal margin, then from the side view where it's at, from the 3/4 view where it's at, because where that line is on each view. It's that coastal margin view. All right, so go ahead and now draw this whole entire shape here a few times. That is the whole red shape. This blue shape, draw it a few more times. Draw both red shapes onto it, then draw the lines. And do that a few times until you're really acquainted with the overall shape here, because this here makes up the outer shape of the body when we add skin. This doesn't really change, the shape doesn't. Now when you start getting fat on it, it does change a little bit, or it can change a lot. Right, and don't forget to add in these little points here, that separation that I'm trying to show between these muscles to show that love handle section. All right, so now let's go ahead and draw the same muscle from the back view, just to get a whole three-dimensional idea of how this muscle works, and it'll help you when you're drawing figures. Although most of this is in the back view is going to be covered by the muscles like the lats and stuff. All right, so again, remember from the 3/4 back view, we saw it connects right about this area right here, and it comes up and connects to that lowest rib, the 12th rib, which is a floating rib. and it connects to the next floating rib, and it comes up, connects to each rib like this until it rolls around to the front view. And this shape right here changes, like, kind of comes out like this. And we'll get into the fat buildup regions, the regions of the skin where fat really builds up. Like in the women, the mammary glands, it really builds up around the breast area, which changes her shape. Her pec muscles are the same, but the fatty tissue is what makes her have breast. Right, so again, just follow that same shape. Remember, see, if you memorize this shape here, let's go ahead and memorize this side first. So draw along with me here. We'll break up the shape of this muscle a little bit. And this is where I want to start showing, oops, too many lines there. I'll start showing the shape of the love handle coming back here. Draw a few lines in between. Kind of break it up. Okay, a lot of this is gonna be covered up anyway, so it's not all important to remember. So important to remember, but still, we're gonna go through it for the sake of thoroughness. Just a little bit of the tendons here that connects, like so. So memorize this first, so you have that, that basic shape, and then try now to flip it over and draw on this side, but without looking at that side at all. What's gonna happen is you're gonna go, okay, what angle is this? It's like your brain has to think about that angle for a second, and it's like, okay, opposite angle here. So it connects like this, and then you have to think about how each one's connecting, right? So it's like, well, how is that working exactly? It's coming like this, then it's coming up to the next one, and the next one, see? And your brain has to kind of flip that around. It's kind of weird. You have to kind of experience that, like do it to see what I'm talking about. Try to cover that up and not look at it. And then not look at any references when you're drawing it. It's weird. Your brain has to flip it around. So it's one of those things you want to memorize from both directions. Like so. The main thing that this is going to do from the back view is just help you remember what the love handles look like from the back view. So I'm going to draw darker lines first, kind of pull harder with my brush here. Kind of distinguish these muscles. Just add a little bit of that fibers there, the tendon fibers. Go back to this color, add just a few lighter lines. Like so. Right, there we have it. I want to really show that separation there with the back side of the love handle there. Right, so go ahead and memorize that side too. Draw a few times for reference, draw a few times for memory. I know so much exercises, it's like homework, but it really is how you get better. Okay, so we have a good handle, I think, now on the latissimus, or the latissimus dorsi, or if you just want to call it, not the latissimus dorsi, sorry, getting tired, of the external obliques, which was called, or externus obliquus, whatever, Latin, but we just call it the obliques. So there you go. That's the external obliques. Next, we'll be covering serratus, which is going to connect and kind of overlap this muscle that we just drew, overlap the obliques, and that's what's going to give us that shape here that we tend to just like memorize after when we first start learning how to draw figures. It's something we just like look at comics and we just kind of like try to memorize it. But we don't understand why it's there, what caused it to be there. And so when we try to draw from different angles, we just try to wing it and try to place it in some general area where we kind of remember drawing it from. But when you learn this muscle and then you learn the external obliques and then you learn the serratus and how it's going to overlap this muscle, then you know exactly where it's at, why it's there, what causes it. And when you have that kind of knowledge, you can just draw it freely from imagination because you're just connecting muscles to where you know they're supposed to go. All right, so in the next lesson, we'll come back and draw serratus. Nope, I lied. Actually, let's just go ahead and include it in this particular video, which shouldn't be too long. Right, so the serratus anterior muscle is the muscle we're going to be working on next. We'll draw it from the side view to get to know it better. It's going to connect to the first 9 ribs, and it's going to be the upper portion of the first 9 ribs. And then it's going to connect into the inside of the scapula, to the inside of the scapula. And what this muscle does is it helps give the scapula a full rotating movement so you can move your arm in a good rotation. And this muscle here, let's see here. I think I'm going to draw it as, I don't know if I want to cover this muscle altogether just so we can always see it. So I'm going to put another layer above here for now, and I'll decide where I want to put it. But because it's going to cover this muscle, but it's also going to go underneath. See here, it's going to go underneath this major muscle here. And so from the front view, you're going to see it going underneath that muscle. From these views, I didn't draw that those muscles because those under muscles aren't all that important. That is those under pec muscles. Right, so again, we're going to draw from the side view first. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so like I said, it connects here on the scapula, so it comes up and it kind of has like a star shape like this, similar to the pec muscle as far as its shape goes. Okay, so it's going to come out from underneath the scapula where it's connecting, and it's going to connect up here to the top part of this first rib, and it's going to go underneath all that inside the scapula. I'm not going to draw all that because you can't see it because it's going underneath. Then it's connect to the second rib, like so, and then it's going to go underneath like this. It'll also go underneath the coracobrachialis, like so, and it's going to come in under the scapula there where it meets with this muscle. Right, then it'll connect to the third rib, and this will come back and connect. And all these muscles, it's all one muscle, so all these branches join to meet up over here. But the muscle kind of splits off like this. So you can kind of look at it and think of it as separate nodes of that muscle or something, parts of that muscle. If you want to think about it as separate muscles altogether, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter how you think about it as long as you're able to draw the thing. That's what matters. Doesn't matter whether or not you can pronounce the name of it correctly. I'm sure I'm pronouncing some of these names incorrectly because I'm no Latin expert. And I really don't care to memorize how these words are actually supposed to be sounded. I don't care to memorize the words period. And in fact, I make a point not to waste my memory space with that. I want to save that memory space for other things. Remember, there's 9 of them because it connects to the first 9 ribs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see here 6, where it's starting to cover these muscles, and then 7. And that's where you can see we get that shape that I'm talking about. See, where you have the shape come here and down, come here and down, come here and down. It's where these muscles overlap and tuck under and over each other. And then finally we have, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need 2 more. We'll go with 8, like that. Now they start coming up higher because it can't come down as much and they get smaller. And then 9. And actually, I want to make that one right here on the thing. There we go. Okay, so to make it easier to see, we'll add the fibers here as this is coming down, like so. Comes across here like this. And all these are coming back, wrapping around, connecting underneath on the inside of the scapula, the underside of the scapula. Right, so as you can see now, I want you to just stop for a second and just draw this part right here a few times because it's kind of a complicated muscle. And just remember, it kind of follows this line here. That's like the main shape of the muscle. Focus on that main shape first, even maybe draw an undersketch of that main shape. Connect these things to it. Might be a little easier to draw that way. So draw this a few times from reference. Get a good handle of it. Make sure it looks right. If it doesn't look right from drawing from reference, don't attempt to draw it from memory. Don't attempt to draw it from memory until after it looks right from reference a few times. Then draw it from memory a few times. And then draw it from reference and memory just to make sure it's correct, that you have a good handle on it. Everything's looking good. Once you have that handled from the side view, because that's the main view that it's really viewed at, then we'll move on to other views. But don't move on in the video series until you've done the exercises and really feel comfortable drawing this muscle. And the main part of the muscle you want to memorize is that. That's part. Everything else will be covered up. So that's the part you want to memorize. How these muscles overlap, and they give you. Look at the shape they give you. they give you this shape right here. That's the shape they give you. That's what you want to memorize. That's what's going to be important on your figures when you draw your figures. All right, so now we'll cover it from the 3/4 view, the front 3/4 view. Go and pick red. So remember, it's connecting underneath the scapula. It's coming up here and it's connecting to the top of this rib. You can kind of know where on that rib it's connecting to because you have the bend in your thing. Also, you know the costal cartilage. So you know it's actually quite far up here. This is where it's connecting. And it's coming back that way, connect to the underside of the scapula. So you can kind of figure this stuff out if you just think about it. You know it kind of follows this line right here, this arch right here. When you know the arch it kind of follows, then you can start to bring the muscle around to that area. Follow that same arch, come back here. Now this top part really isn't really that important to memorize because again it's all going to be covered by the pectorals as you can see. So the part that's important to memorize of this muscle is this whole bottom part right here that starts to come out. And that's where we start to get this overlapping of these muscles here. So this right here is when it's important to memorize. Right here, we start to get this overlapping of these muscles. You're going to see just a few of them. You might even see that little small one. Depends on the angle of the 3/4 view, how extreme it is. In this case, we can see it a little bit. So it comes like that. So see how that shape right here we're memorizing and why we're memorizing it now? You can see that shape right there. That's the shape you want to memorize. And that's the importance of this muscle. That's going to make a difference on your figures. So for the sake of completeness, I'm going through everywhere the muscle attaches, even though it's not important to memorize. And I'm trying to then tell you what's the important parts to memorize to that. That's the part you can save your memory bank for, because it's going to be really hard to memorize everything about the human body. Your brain probably just might not be able to handle it all, and then you have to draw it all the time to keep up on it. But if you memorize the important parts, which is there and there, then you're saving your memory space. So you're drawing all this with me, but the part you're dedicating to your memory is where this muscle, these last nodes right here, where they overlap these muscles here, the external oblique. That's the part you're dedicating to your memory. And you're dedicating to your memory like kind of where it is on the body. You know it's down on this lower part of the rib cage. You know it's just a little bit higher than the love handle, right? Kind of the distance between you have like rib cage, and then you have your hip crest from the side view. Then you know you have your legs coming out here, and so you have the legs connecting up here, love handle connecting here, and then you have these parts here where it kind of comes across and then comes down, right? You have that shape right there. So it's a general idea of where it fits at on the body when you're drawing it from your imagination. Right, next we'll draw the serratus from the 3/4 back view. Right, so most of it we can't see, and it kind of you can keep in mind the ribs it connects down. So it's the first 9 ribs, right? So if you try to count the first 9 ribs, in this case, count upwards, you know there's 12 ribs total, so 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, right? So we know that there's 3 ribs missing, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So it's on this 4th rib, this is where it starts to connect. So this one here is going to start to connect right in this area here, and it comes down from this bottom inside of the scapula, comes down and connects to that rib here, like so. Comes up, connects to this next rib. And in fact, I might kind of draw this in here. Just a general shape first. Comes like this, comes up. It's going to connect over to this rib here as it wraps around the body. And then we can't see because the arm's in the way, and then all those wrap around to the front side of the body anyway. And wraps around to that front side of the body. So you can't see much of it from the back view or the 3/4 back view. Maybe if you're drawing a position where the arm's up, you might see a little bit of this muscle structure. That is, you might see that, the thing we've been memorizing, this shape there, you might see a couple of those. And again, these kind of all spiral out like that. Draw just a few strands. I'm not focusing so much on this back part because this muscle is more important from a side view and front view and front 3/4 view, but not really important at all to the back view. So I just covered it really fast so you get a general idea. And when we draw some animated, poses and stuff, you can see maybe how that might be important in some poses. It kind of comes over these muscles, overlap, kind of get that shape. Oops, I messed that up. Okay. This isn't really important to memorize, but just to get a general idea of how it looks like from the back, this is what you're going to see. Remember, it comes down here. You have 1, 2, 3, connects to this fourth rib here, comes around to the front, and that's it. That's all you see. You don't see any of the connection points. So it's pretty simple. And you might see a few of the, if we draw the fibers, you'll see kind of how they come around like this, kind of star out. But yeah, that's really all you're going to see. Make sure I separate that scapula. And we'll draw a few light lines. There we go. I'm not going to draw it on both sides because it's not, like I said, from the back view, it's just not that important of a muscle. It's going to be most of it's going to be covered anyway with the latissimus or the latissimus dorsi or the lats. And there's really no reason to finish this off in the front because honestly, this is going to cover any of the muscle you really see wrap around. But you might see, and I know a lot of times you'll see in comic books they do it. They'll actually draw this muscle group in there, even though it's really not visible. It's barely visible. You have one that's here, and you might be able to see another one here, and that's it, two of them. But you notice in comic books, oftentimes you'll see like three of them connected there from the front view, and you can do that if you want to, and just know that they're connected to these lines coming up, right? And they're kind of coming across them and cutting them, so they're kind of coming across like this, right? They connect to that part right here, like that. So just remember how they look. If you draw three of them, they connect to these parts of the muscles like that. So if I wanted to draw one here, I can draw one more here, even though it might not be visible in real life. But comic characters, you can just go for cool factor. And they kind of make this general shape. Boom, where that line's coming that way and that way. And that's how you get those shapes. Right, because these are cutting across those muscles, overlapping as you saw. But mainly these muscles are visible from an angled view, like a 3/4 view, or from the side view. They're not really visible from the front. Again, you might just see a little bit of the top two ones there. Not the very top two, but those two I drew before. This third one wouldn't really be visible at all. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just really show these lines here. This actually comes across more like this. Oops. It's kind of, I want to really show it. It's kind of harder to see from the front view to make it look right, but kind of like that. Right, so that will end or conclude this particular lecture, if you want to look at it that way, or lesson. We'll come back with, I think, the next muscle group we will deal with before we get into the back muscles and neck muscles, more of the back muscles and neck muscles. We will get into the abdominal muscles to just close off the whole midsection here, the whole torso midsection. All right, so thanks for watching. We'll come back with the abdominals, or if you want to get all technical, the rectus oh my gosh, that word is a tongue twister for me. The rectus abdominis. It's a hard word to say. It's like a tongue twister. But I'll be calling them the abs because that's much easier to say. Abdominis. Try that word. It's kind of tricky on the tongue.